Καλησπέρα σας.
Well, good evening. Our name is Anna Merikasloglou and Lugia Sinodnou. We work at Stavros Niarchos Foundation, and we'd like to thank you to the dialogues tonight. We'll try to do so at least, and it will be a great effort indeed. Jai Huandu,
Jinwan, woman yo, Shanghai, Jai Stavros Niarchos, Jin Jin Hui, Wen Hua Zhongshin, Gong Tong, Yin Lai, Qin Chung, Jia Jie.
Tonight, the Stavros Niarchos Foundation is celebrating for the second time within a month the New Year, and this will be after the various celebrations we had on the day before New Year, on New Year's Eve.
Zhang Shouwei, Hao Shi, Zhang Xuan, Xinlian Huanjing, Gan Shi, Zhu Shi, Qi Shi Zhi Ke, 我们会说过去，感慨万千，我们展望未来，欣赏豪迈。
So, the first day of the year is, in fact, a unique celebration because it serves a dual role. Because on the one hand, it gives us the possibility to actually review the year that has passed and also to have future plans.
我们一起回顾 SNF 在中国以往的几场公益活动，从2008年展览性地震后的经济救援，到与 Simon Fraser 大学合作进行的饮食和语言倡议文化交流，以及主办于 阳电国家美术馆的中国欢喜展报展等。
So tonight we are going to actually look back throughout the actions that we have done in China. There has been the efforts that we have done to support the victims of the earthquake, the intercultural exchanges with initiative for English, Greek and Chinese language together with Simon Fraser University in Canada, and supporting the Imperial Treasures exhibition of China, which was realized in the National Gallery in Greece with the donation of the foundation.
来自展望未来，虽然未来充满未知，但我们决心无论怎样，真正的对话将永远都是无比珍贵的。
Ωστόσο σήμερα, κατά κύριο λόγο το βλέπουμε.
However, today we are going to be looking towards the future. We're not in a position to know what it will bring, but we know that whatever might happen, dialogues and real conversations such as the one today will continue to play an important role.
感谢大家参与本届对话，并恭祝大家诸事如意，自然吉祥。
Σας ευχαριστούμε όλους για τη συμμετοχή.
Thank you very much for your participation in this discussion, and we wish you a very happy new year.
Καλησπέρα σας λοιπόν.
Well, good evening from us also, and in this panel, in this celebratory meeting, and in the discussion that we will have, and we are going to be talking about the new year that will be celebrated according to the Chinese tradition. You'll give us a bit of time until we actually are able to arrange the headsets for the interpretation also. I would like to welcome all those who are also attending from outside the auditorium here, and all of you who are watching from the live streaming over the internet. We're going to open a discussion, and we are going to also extend our own celebratory mode. It is in the first month of the new year here in Greece, so we hope that we have a very good new year, And I was saying that we are going to have an exceptional opportunity to see how we can actually do away with the distance and how the various differences that might appear to exist on a first level might actually result in very many similarities and a broader common ground, whether that is culture, history, science, innovation, trade, or anything else. So we are going to try, and obviously we have very little time in order to talk about the relations between the two people, that is the Greeks and the Chinese, the Chinese and the Greeks, that are in fact very much desirous to actually cover the ground individually or in groups, and having in mind their objective according to their field of interest. Now, I would like to welcome first and foremost our guests, because it is in fact a great pleasure to have them with us. They have come here so that we can open up this entire discussion. And as we're doing traditionally now in dialogues, we are going to talk about issues so that we can all be able actually discuss these questions and give rise to more questions and try to seek answers. But of course, the greatest importance is to put more questions. For this reason, I would like to invite and to ask all of you, whether you are here or whether you are watching through the live streaming, to send your messages so that we can hear your questions, we can hear your positions during the discussion, depending on the speaker that you want to address the question or any point of the discussion. And we have with us here, and I'll start from the lady of our company, and it is the ambassador of China, Tang Ziyue. Of course, my Chinese are not good. So thank you very much for responding to our invitation and being with us here today. You will permit me not to be so good in the pronunciation of Chinese as, of course, Ana Maria and Lucia, that we've just heard them speak before. And we also have with us Professor Angelos Chaniotis. He's a professor of ancient history and classical studies at the Institute for Advanced Study. Thank you very much for being with us here. It is a great pleasure that you are with us here in Greece and that we have the opportunity to have you with us today. Mr. Chaniotis is a friend of Dialogues, and he's amongst the speakers who has, in fact, awed and wowed the audience with what he said. And we would like to see through history how topical certain points are that we now meet today. And also we have the director of the Confucius Institute of Athens, Louis-Ju Lijuan. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. And as you see, we have, in fact, also been connected with the speakers abroad. And we have our connection with Beijing, with the Embassy of Greece there. And I'd like to thank the Greek ambassador in China, Mr. Leonidas Roganas. We'd like to say good evening from Athens. Thank you very much for being here. Good evening from China. And we'll have Mrs. Luedonia, who's an artist. And she has a lot of interesting things to talk about. She's also with you there. And thank you very much for responding also, Mrs. Loa. You're a person who loves Greece and the Greek civilization, and you have a family tradition, if I may say so. And you have also studied in Greece, amongst other things, and you've also focused on the ancient Greek drama. So, of course, when it comes to culture in our days, and not only historically and through time, we would like to hear and to have examples cited from your experience also. Welcome also. Thank you very much. Good evening from Beijing. Now, also in the Greek embassy, we have Vasilis Trigas. I would like to welcome you, Mr. Trigas, co-founder for the Center for the Strategic and Economic Studies of the New Silk Road. And we see how, in fact, the paths are paved. And as I said during the introduction, we have new fields where there's a very intense interest and an intense activity both on behalf of Greeks and the Chinese, and we will have the possibility to see Mr. Drigas also. But we're not only in Greece and China, we have arrived also in Canada. And you'll hear why soon, because I'd like to welcome Dimitris Krailis. He's with us. Welcome, Mr. Krailis, Acting Director at the SNF Centre for Hellenic Studies at the University of Simon Fraser in Canada. Because here, when we are going to enter into the academic field, we will see the interest not only of Greeks or Chinese about learning these languages, but as I said before with Mrs. Lower, who is an example to illustrate this point, there are no few cases where they actually choose to do part or all of the studies to be realized in one or the other country. Now, let us move on. Let us go immediately into the discussion. As you have, in fact, already had a very good first taste, you know that there will be a very rich artistic program also, because symbols and tradition are very strong. So my first question, before I actually look to you, Ambassador, to give us certain elements with respect to the Chinese New Year, I want to ask what we're wearing now. We're all wearing this.
Well, first of all, let me say, Galina Hornia. Thank all of you for coming. Thank you. And I really wanted to, first of all, thank the Stavros Niarchos Foundation for organizing this dialogue, focusing on the Chinese New Year. The Chinese New Year is actually the most important holiday for China, for Asia, and for many other countries. And during this period, you will see a lot of red. Because we believe that the red can bring happiness, good fortune, a lot of good luck. So I hope that starting from next week, you'll be all wearing something red or having some red decorations at your home. That will bring a lot of good luck. And also, as you know, that we have, according to our tradition, we have the 12 zodiac animals. So starting from the 5th of February this year, we are entering the year of the pig. So that's why we have the pig everywhere. The pig is very lucky and very adorable animal. So we believe that this year will bring a lot of good luck, happiness, peace, prosperity for all of us. Well, there are a lot of things to talk about the Chinese Spring Festival, but I think I'll just give you 3 R's. Well, the first R that is to characterize the Chinese New Year is reunion. I think this is probably the most important feature for this holiday. During the Chinese New Year, right now for us, everybody's going to have a 7-day holiday, a week-long holiday. You are not only will be having a feast, having a gathering with your nucleus, small family, but you will be returning to your hometown, meeting with your parents, your grandparents. So for starting from this week, there will be a lot of people traveling back and forth. Because today many people go to university in the cities or work in the cities, but they all have to return to their hometown. Because in our tradition, I think it's similar to the Greek tradition, family is very, very important. So at least once a year, you have to see your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and the extended family, and also close friends and neighbors. So this is the first R, reunion. And the second R is, I would say, is respect. During this holiday season, you pay your respect to your ancestors. You pay your respect to your grandparents, your great-grandparents. You pay great respect to your parents. And of course, then your sisters and brothers and everyone in the family. And also, you will be able, and everybody tries this very hard, to see your close friends, even your close colleagues, if you can. So this is actually the time to show your respect. And this is very much part of the Chinese culture and tradition. And the third R I wanted to mention is, we can say, reset or restart. or reinvigorate. That is after a whole year of really hard work. You wanted to have some relaxation. You wanted to have a good time with your friends and family. And then you, during this 7-day-long holiday, you'll be talking, meeting, chatting with your family and friends. Then you get a lot of inspiration and encouragement from the family. And so that will give you, I think, a good start for the new year, because the new year will always be a lot of work, a lot of things to do. So I think this is a very good holiday, and I just wanted to stress one point, that today that this Spring Festival is not just a holiday for China, for Asia, but it's becoming an international holiday. Just to give you an example, last year I was still in New York. I was the Chinese Consul General in New York for 4 years. And actually, since 2014, to take New York City as an example, the New York Assembly, the legal body of New York State, has adopted a law stipulating that for the Chinese New Year, it's already a public holiday for all the New York public schools. So today, Chinese New Year is not only a Chinese holiday, it's a holiday for the New Yorkers, for the people in New York. In the public schools, all the children have a holiday. So this is becoming more and more an international event. So I'm hoping that with all these introductions and presentations and celebrations, I hope that the Greek people, all of you, could celebrate this holiday with us together, and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wonder, and I will actually come, Mr. Chaniotis, to you. When I first asked Mr. Li Juan with respect to the role of symbols, the traditional symbols in the Chinese culture, we see many symbols existing either in the traditional celebrations, but not only. So would it be perhaps of interest for you to note what is the role, but also in which way we have China preserve its symbols in its tradition? And then, in order to complete the question, I'm looking to you, Professor Chaniotis. I wonder that if we actually go back to ancient Greece, and if in the same way that we find certain common principles, as we heard the ambassador mention, could we also find certain common symbols or certain common points with respect to the celebration of the New Year? But Melissa Jian, we are listening to you first. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm very much honored to be here to give a presentation of a Chinese festival concerning the Chinese Spring Festival. We have, actually a lot of detailed customs to talk about. Just now, the MC mentioned that why there is, everything we can see red. Say the red pig, red scarf, red, lantern, red Chinese knots. Let me start with a story of the Chinese word nian. Nian means year, but in Chinese, in ancient history, nian is an animal. It's a very cruel, fierce animal. This animal, nian, would come to village to kill people, to kill livestock. And then a wise person, but we don't know who, anyway, a wise person came up with a good idea. That is, people put red things everywhere. Also, they set off firecrackers to give a loud noise. Especially everything is painted red. Then in this way, the fierce animal nian was kept away, was scared away. So that is one of the customs we Chinese people follow. And that is why you see when you are in China during this period, you see everything, a lot of things are in red. Now, second, I want to talk about is another, we call it festival. It's called a little year, small year. Actually, this day falls on the 23rd of the Chinese lunar calendar. This is actually, some people say this is the beginning of the celebration of the Chinese New Year. Some people say the beginning will be from the first day of the first month of Chinese calendar. But anyway, in some provinces, in some regions, on the day of little year, that is the 23rd day of, that is actually the 12th month of Chinese lunar calendar. People begin to hang up red things, Now, what you are seeing here, we hang red lantern, we hang red Chinese knots, we hang red Chinese character Fu. Fu is the character, this means happiness. And we also paste paper cuts on window, which is also red. And then after after a week, 1 week, there is the Chinese Lunar New Year Eve. This is a great day because this is just as the ambassador mentioned. This is a time for family reunion. And on this occasion, people set off fireworks to welcome the new year. Also, we give sacrifice to our ancestors. Also, we make jiaozi, Chinese dumpling, jiaozi. In the north, we make jiaozi, but in the south, they make yuanxiao or wonton. This is called a ball-like food. Actually, it is glutinous rice ball. In different provinces in China, they have different customs to celebrate during this time. And now, there is also on Chinese New Year's Eve, a great gala, we call it Spring Festival Gala on CCTV, which is Central China Television. People have the custom, on this day, people have the custom of staying up for the new year, or visual for the new year. And at the same time, they are enjoying the programs, all those happy programs from CCTV. The second, okay. Now, from the second day of the celebration, people began to go to their friends, family for a visit, and on the fifth day, we call it Pu'er Wu. That is to break the five. People begin to welcome God of wealth. And then 1 week later, we begin to celebrate the Lantern Festival. See all those lanterns here hanging here from the ceiling? Lantern Festival, which is also a great occasion for Chinese people to celebrate. And on this day, which is the 15th day of the first month of the Chinese lunar calendar, people, go out to enjoy this festival. They go to parks, they go to streets to guess at the lantern riddle. If they are right, they can be given a prize or a gift. And Lantern Festival is also the mark of the end of the Chinese New Year celebration, which lasts for 2 weeks. Actually, a lot of details, 1 hour, 2 hours, maybe 1 day, 2 days, will be, taken to explain all the details. So just now I give you some rough idea of the customs of Chinese Spring New Year celebration.
Νομίζω ότι πήραμε μια πολύ καλή...
I think that we have, in fact, a very good idea now. It was very comprehensive with respect to the symbolism and the red colour that prevails everywhere. And I also hear and see, rather, we'll see, Ambassador, I see that on your table there are certain objects that might be presented by you later. And I will be a bit ungracious to remind you from the beginning that we have limited time and we want to hear everybody. We have numerous guests and we are very pleased to have you all with us, but we have to be brief, in fact, statements. So, Mr. Hagnotis, let's look back to ancient Greece. One can find common characteristics or not with respect to the celebration of the New Year? Well, thank you very much. I will try to be, in fact, brief, and if there are questions, we will actually come back to the issue in the discussions. One can find similarity in all values that relate to the New Year, in the idea of a new beginning, the idea of abundance and wealth, and the importance of the family. But the difference is that one doesn't find anything in the celebration of the New Year in ancient Greece, for the simple reason that the celebration of a New Year does not exist in the sense that we know it today. So, of course, a new year starts, but the beginning of the new year in ancient Greece is mainly a political act. It is the day where the annual officials take up their duties. It's called sometimes the Neominia. So it is, in fact, the first day of the month in which the new moon, in fact, appears. So it's the first day of the cycle of the 12 months. But it has, in fact, almost no religious connotation apart from a sacrifice and the prayers that take place when the new officials take up their duties. There are certain similarities in the symbolism. I would like to say that I also am a pig in the Chinese zodiac, so it was a great pleasure to attend this event. And of course, the ancient Greeks connected pig with abundance, and this was not connected with the New Year, but rather with Demeter. It is, in fact, the animal that is often given in sacrifice to this goddess. And we see that they're also presented as idols to the goddess. And I think you might have seen the in the previous event that we had in the Museum of Acropolis, an epigram which was for a piglet that died in a road accident in Edessa. Well, I must say that, however, I am in fact wearing red today. I'm wearing, in fact, the red a red tie, which is in fact from the university where I now teach in China. And of course, it is in fact red that has symbolism in ancient Greece. It's not, however, of hope and joy, but it is of violence and power. It is in fact the colour of the uniform of the Spartans, so that you can't see actually the blood actually leaving their wounds, and it's also the colour of a priest that's about to make a sacrifice in a celebration when all the public is wearing white. And this is something that's set forth in the law. And the elements that we see in the celebration of the New Year in China exist also in Greek celebrations, but they don't exist in one. So we see that they are spread out throughout the year. So the family and the ancestors are important in the Ionian celebration of Abadurin or in the birthdays, but also various days in which they celebrate fertility, but these are not related to the New Year. The greatest difference is that although in ancient Greece we have a linear time, in China we have the cycle of time every 12 years. So there are the cycles that are based on the calendar in ancient Greece. So beyond the 12 months of the year, there's also the Metonic cycle of the 19 years. And this is an astronomical calculation purely. because so that the lunar and the solar calendars that are utilized in the ancient Greece, these can coincide, and we can have the completion of 238 months, so that the course of the ages can actually coincide with the calendar. And I put a full stop here. So this is very interesting, and there's a lot of common points, and there are also great contrasts, such as the color red that you yourself mentioned, and not solely. Ambassador, can we listen to you? Can we hear what is happening there in Beijing and your view of Greece? And after we hear all of these points that you have to add, listening to these speakers here, these panelists, let us look at your experience on your side and your view. You actually see and identify as a common trait or as a common field between the two peoples. So let us come to the people and see the Chinese and the Greeks and where they actually meet up, especially when it comes to culture and history. Yes. First and foremost, I'd like to bid you a good evening and a Happy New Year. And I'd like to say a good evening to my friend, the Ambassador of China. It is a great pleasure to be with you here. We also have here certain of the symbols that we find in abundance in China. Of course, the pig, the piglet. And you should know that this is, in fact, an animal that is also present in the Chinese mythology. It's amongst the oldest 6 animals in the Chinese mythology. And these were born by Nuba, the goddess that also actually created the other animals and then man on the 7th day. So we see it is the last animal of the zodiac cycle, and the new cycle will commence with the rat. So the previous one was, in fact, the year of the dog, and the previous was the year of the crow. Or the cock. So I actually am a cock myself. So in front of us, we have, in fact, certain firecrackers, which, as you know, is one of the greatest inventions, together with with paper, the compass. There are many inventions that China has offered to culture and civilization. You will see that I am also wearing a red tie. And red here is also considered to be, as the Chinese ambassador said, a color that helps in exorcising the bad spirits and evil generally. So in order to talk about similarities and the differences, I would say that the Greeks and the Chinese are two peoples. And I am following Kazadakis' theory here by saying that if you actually look under the skin of a Greek, you'll find a Chinese, and if you do the same to a Chinese, you'll find a Greek. So I am of that theory. And although one belongs in the Far East and the other in the West, but nevertheless, I believe that there is, in fact, a similar intellectual history. The two great cultures have a parallel cultural course which has common points. So I think we have the two cultures in 500 AD, BC actually created huge achievements that have changed the course of history without having any contact amongst them. But we see that beyond that, the community of thought of the two peoples are, in fact, communities that have great similarities and differences. I'm referring to Confucius, that I admit to love a lot, and philosophers such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. But beyond that, the sage men of China, of the spring and autumns and of the kingdoms from the 8th century to the 3rd century BC. So, besides these similarities in philosophical thinking, in the historical conjuncture, I would say that even in the character and the personalities of the two peoples, I think the key element that one distinguishes when one comes here, and one finds it in one's day-to-day contact with people, is the automatic respect that we hold each other in. So we don't need to earn the respect of each other. It is something that is given automatically, spontaneously, because there is this historical depth that the Chinese say that they have 5,000 years of history, but it's longer, in fact, as is the case for us in Greece. But this is not solely the issue. We see that the history of Greece and China have, in fact, influenced the whole wide world. They have left a footprint in all the histories and all the languages and in shaping world culture. So this unique characteristic, this cultural element, which is also human in nature, of the two peoples, makes our relationship different and unique compared to others. And I would say that this is the most important thing that we need to note. In this session of the dialogues, which is very, very useful indeed. And when we talk about the peoples, of course, you will have noted that in the traditions that they have for their own New Year, there are very many similarities with our own customs, and these are customs and traditions that we still keep alive, especially when it comes to the family ties and their importance. And we see that the key cell of society is the family. And it is, in fact, Chinese tradition and thinking and culture that attaches great importance to families. And of course, Confucius, that I referred to before, is, in fact, the individual, but also the family ties from which Confucius actually draws on in terms of models and role models when it comes to human relations. I would say that there are, in fact, very great similarities. There are similarities, of course, in other cultural fields, even in music. I don't want to expand on this, however, but even there, although the two peoples are considered very far removed geographically speaking, nevertheless, they're connected with very many common traits. Now, I would like to conclude by saying the basis, the foundation of our relationship has always been culture. And this is true also for the ties of friendship that connect us. Culture as a phenomenon that is universal. And it's not so much history. It's, in fact, historical contact that we have during Byzantine times and a bit earlier. So the contact has started from Alexander the Great. And here you are giving me the best possible pretext to come back to afterwards the cultural field. I would like to remind you that Mrs. Liu is with us, but Ambassador, you're giving me the greatest pretext to look to Professor Chaniotis, and if he can actually tell us on a global level, can you say in a few words the influence and the impact of the two cultures?
Να συμπληρώσω αυτό που είπε ο κύριος Πρέσβης, ότι όντως, παρά το γεγονός ότι από πρώτη ματιά φαίνεται...
Although it seems that China and Greece are not directly associated, but it's not just the narrow geographical area of modern Greece. Greece is Hellenism, and after the conquests of Alexander the Great, we had the kingdoms that had contacts with northern Western China, which has been documented archaeologically and from Chinese sources that refer to the great ions. So those kingdoms that were the successors of Alexander the Great. Concerning the influence of Greece and China on culture, I think one of the most important elements is mostly that both, and I have found out by teaching in China and by seeing the interest of Chinese students in writing. So these are two civilizations that have shaped types of writing, forms of writing, which they still continue, they still use, despite the geopolitical changes. They are still followed. And Chinese has a very complex system of writing, which is not just writing, it's a whole art. Calligraphy, a whole art that is related to their way of thinking. In Greece, things are different. It is a writing, a type of writing which can enlarge literacy among broad social classes, which is a revolution actually that takes place in Greece in the 7th century BC. And since this revolution simplifies writing, it allows more people, irrespective of the social class, and not just for a narrow circle of writers. So it allows people to write, and therefore people are able to preserve their memories and their knowledge in written texts. And that was the starting point. So the starting point was writing, and this is where everything started from. And then there is influence in the field of philosophy, medicine, astronomy, but even magic, because I see these knots here, which in ancient Greece as well are a magic, a symbol of magic, of guessing how humans, and this is the teaching we get from these civilizations, how humans are trying to control their fate. Yes, it's impressive, and the ambassador is trying to show us these knots mentioned by Mr. Chaniotis, Professor Chaniotis. So coming to today, from your viewpoint, and having had the Greek side and the Greek ambassador in Beijing, how or where would you see most, because there are several fields, but in what sector would you see most similarities between the two peoples?
Similarities. Well, I believe that we share a lot of similarities. If we go back to the ancient culture, I think both of our nations and civilizations, we attach a great importance to virtue and morality and benevolence. The importance of virtue and benevolence are really the high value of the society. And another thing that comes to my mind is, apart from the family tie, which is so important, which is the basic cell, as the ambassador said, the basic cell of the society, I think education is also very important. I think for both of our countries, we pay great attention to education. For the Chinese parents, I always say that we are the best parents because we spend almost every penny. We get every penny and we give it to our children on their education. And the third point that comes to my mind is that I think both of our civilizations, we advocate for moderation. We know the negative consequences of going into extremes. So we very much advocate for moderation and the middle ground. And so to say in a more broad sense, I think today we both share very much the value of and really would like to see world peace and also development. And this is very much, I think, the priority for both of our countries. And that's why I think we could really work as partners to cooperate more on every front. And today, another point I wanted to follow up on the professor is that today I think the world is faced with many, many challenges and problems. And I think in order to solve these problems, we could both, I think, the Hellenic Republic, Greece and China can really contribute, because we have come a long way. We have a long civilization, and we have seen the ups and downs of history. And so we very much wanted to see peace and development. And so that's why I think to engage in dialogues of ancient civilization is so important. So in 2017, the Greek government has proposed a dialogue of ancient civilizations, and China responded right away. So now every year there's a dialogue among the ancient civilizations, and more countries wanted to participate in. Because I think when we talk about history, we're not only focusing on the historical facts, we're trying to find solutions for solving today's problem. And I think in this aspect, both Greece and China can really contribute to world peace and development.
Έχω κρατήσει αρκετά από τα σημεία που
You have mentioned important points, which I have written down here, starting from education, because indeed this opens up a whole cycle that can embrace any initiative for further partnerships and more fields of collaboration between the two peoples. Let me come to tourism. Let me come on the other side, because here in our country, not just in summer months, but throughout the year, we know that the Chinese prefer Greece for their holidays. So throughout the year, we see either in Athens or on the Greek islands, we see Chinese people who traditionally and consistently choose our country for the holidays again and again. What are they looking for? And please allow me to describe this with a picture, because this is something that is being discussed a lot. So you would not see easily people interested in the sea or the beaches. It's not that they don't like them, but to try to explain, we see a strong interest of Chinese to come back to Athens, stay in Athens, and get to know the capital. So what are they looking for? Please explain, and not just in Athens, of course, all over Greece. So why an average Chinese would come from the other corner of the world to visit Greece?
Okay, well, let me first say that I cannot really speak for all of the Chinese, because you must remember that there's almost 1.4 billion people. So everybody has his own, dreams or destination, the most, sought after destination. But I think generally speaking, the Chinese people, they have great respect for Greece, the Greek civilization, history. They have they really wanted to learn everything about Greece and Europe in general, because they have learned in school from, when they were very young about world civilization, world history, and Greece and the Greek civilization was the first part of that history to really learn. So when they come to this country, of course they enjoy the blue sky, the sun, the beaches, but at the same time they wanted to learn and wanted to see for themselves. So most of the people that I meet, that once they have visited, for example, the Acropolis, they were so impressed that after more than 2,000 years, 2,400 years, there is still this construction, such a magnificent construction that they can still see with their eyes. And so they're very interested in visiting the museums, the different islands, to experience the different cultures. So this is an aspect that to further explore in the relations between our two countries. We already, I just wanted to inform the audience that there is already a direct flight by Air China from Athens to Beijing. But we're hoping that in the coming months and years, we'll have more direct flights, and we hope that there will be more flights per week. So it will be very easy for the Chinese tourists and the business people and students to come to this country, and also for you to visit China. China has also many places to visit. But I definitely think that this is an area to needs to be further explored, because from tourism, people, once they have seen this country and grown an interest in this country, I think there will be business opportunities, education opportunities, or many other opportunities possible, and this is very good for our relationship.
Ας πάμε λοιπόν στο κομμάτι της εκπαίδευσης, στο κομμάτι της παιδείας.
Let's go to education and let us open up, Mr. Graili, and I want to hear you at this point. Let us go to Canada, and you can explain to us why we've actually gone to Canada. Although we're discussing about Athens and Beijing, that means Greece and China. I think that the work that you are producing there is of very great interest. And you have great experience in actually conveying from your own eyes and viewpoint the interest that is now expressed in the world of academia. Well, I'd like to say good morning from Vancouver. It is now dawn here. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this session of dialogues. In the Simon Fraser University, in the Hellenic Studies Department of Stavros Niarchos, we have started for a decade now to make an effort to develop the collaboration with the Chinese colleagues who work on Greek studies and Greek language in China. Now, starting with the significant financing by the Stavros Niarchos Foundation and the development of internet applications for teaching the Greek language, we have started offering through collaborations with the Chinese universities classes in Greek in China. At the same time, we have started to create courses over the internet in order to help give Greek cultural courses to students who are interested in China. And as the panelists have said, there's a great interest in ancient Greek civilization here in China. And what we've tried to do using the ancient Greek civilization is to draw the interested Chinese student to look at more recent events. I am interested in Byzantine studies, and the courses that have been put together for the Byzantine matters are used by a Chinese colleague in his courses, and there's a mixed use of internet and teaching in the classroom. I hope in the next month, in the beginning of March, I will be in Beijing in order to launch a discussion to investigate where we can actually take this collaboration. Obviously, Mr. Chaniotis has great experience, and I am just starting out what he himself has been doing for quite a while now. But the collaboration of our university and our centre actually dates back to 10 years ago. Now, if I could actually interject something with respect to common ground, common elements that was discussed earlier, I think it's important to think of the experience of the Greeks and the Chinese as members of the diaspora. From ancient times until the present day, Chinese and Greeks travel. We imagine ourselves to be seafarers with a Greek seafaring tradition. There's the similar Chinese tradition in the Middle Ages with Zhang He, who travelled with huge fleets around the world. And there were always communities of Greeks and Chinese that were in fact created far from metropolitan China and Greece. And there are also very important common experiences. In Vancouver, where I'm located, we're about 5,000 Greeks. There's also a Chinese and Chinese-Canadian community that numbers 300 and 350,000 strong. And that actually creates a lot of contact. And that's how we have students here in the classroom in Simon Fraser when they're seeking, in fact, courses in mythology. And this draws their interest. And we have students that are now in Canada and who will want to learn Greek. So there are huge opportunities for further development of this field. And of course, there is, in fact, a lot of research subjects for the researchers. I am interested in ancient and Middle Ages in China because it is a state that actually does things in a way which is quite similar to what was done in the Byzantium. So I think there is a huge possibility for discussion. And they're great. And yes, I was looking to you now, Mr. Kanyadis. Of course, I'll be very brief again. I hope that you can hear me. Good. So I would like to actually add something to what Mr. Karalis said very appropriately and nicely, because he actually drew a comparison between Byzantium and China and similar forms of power, rituals, geographic expansion, trade, etc. But I would like also to come to a point which I think summarizes various points that have been raised so far. That means the love of Greeks and Chinese for knowledge and the element of diaspora. And I would like to refer to a personal experience. When I went to Heidelberg as a professor in 1998, the Greeks, no, when I went as a student in 82, the greatest number of students after the Germans, it were Greeks. 10 years, when I went as a professor, the most populous students were, in fact, the Chinese, and then came the Greeks. When the Chinese were given the possibility to be able to travel and live in Europe, they did it, not only for reasons of trade, economy, and restoration, but because of their love of learning. And this actually creates these communities of the diaspora, which is not only communities of workers, but communities of scientists, intellectuals, and peoples of culture. A second experience I wanted to share with you has to do with something that I met for the first time when I taught at the University of Chengchun, and that is the fact that the students, upon arriving to the classroom, came for something elemental, which we have forgotten in the Western universities. They came not to be given a degree, but they come to learn. None of them actually was given a certificate or a diploma. Most of them did not even study something that was related to this. They came because they wanted to learn. And I brought two books. One is the Chinese translation of Cavafis. And I think it's interesting to see how the ties actually are, in fact, expanding not only Confucius and ancient philosophy, but also in modern Greek. This was, in fact, a gift by a Chinese student. I was teaching ancient Greek epigraphs. I was talking about those that existed in the poetry of Cavafis. And he brought me the next day the only translation that exists of Cavafis in Chinese. And he said, beyond the Latin and Russian and the other languages he knew, he wanted to learn modern Greek to read Cavafis from the original. The second book that I brought is a collection of ancient Greek epigraphs translated into Chinese. And this was, in fact, published last year. So when we study these, or we've been studying the ancient Greek epigraphs in Greece since the last century, there's only one anthology for the use of the students in Greece in Greek. But the epigraphs have been studied, in fact, in China for a few years only. And there's already an anthology. And this was upon the initiative of Sofia Neziri. And this is something that we have to be taught by the Chinese. And that is the great love they have of tradition, the tradition in the good sense. And this is something that if Greece has a prospect in the future, this is related exactly with this. And then we have the love of education. It is not training that actually gives us, in fact, a diploma, but education and the love of learning generally. Thank you, Mr. Hanyodis. Now, Mrs. Luo, shall we come to your experience? And how was this actually, was your interest stirred? Of course, certain might not know what you have done, so perhaps it would be good for you to give us an overview of how your love of Greece was born and how was it in fact developed and how did you actually focus on ancient Greek drama.
Έχουμε κάποιο πρόβλημα στον ήχο, δεν σας ακούμε.
Is there a problem with the sound? We don't hear you. Do you hear me now? Yes, yes, you can hear me. I can hear you. Yes, yes. Good evening to all. Singing Kualu. And your question is very good. How we as a family came to love Greece and how we began to love the Greek civilization. I think that I should start by talking about my grandfather, who was the first Chinese student in Greece from 1934. And after his studies, he devoted his entire life in the translation of the ancient Greek classical works and in the transmission of Hellenism in China. My father is the first director who staged an ancient Greek drama officially in the Chinese stage. And that is why our family was a milieu that inspired us to love Greek culture. And that is why I came in the 90s to Greece. I studied and worked there, and I consider Greece to be my second homeland. Could you tell us? Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much for coming with us here tonight. And you're very often here in Greece, and it's just by happenstance that you're in Beijing at the moment. Now, I heard Mr. Kralis, who actually referred to a colleague and he used the European name and his name in Chinese. Can we hear your name also? Because Donya is your European name, if we could call it such. Yes, of course. I have been christened in Greece and my name is Antonia Athina. My Chinese is Luotum. Could you actually give us certain examples from synergies and collaborations in the field of in the field of civilization and culture of the two countries? Yes, I have actually been involved in two subjects. One is teaching Chinese to Greek students and pupils. I was 14 years at the University of Athens, and I taught Chinese there to Greeks. And I have a cultural center in Piraeus, where we teach Chinese to Greeks, and we try to promote Chinese culture in Greece. And at the same time, the second profession I have is a director in the theatre and cinema. So it is thanks to this profession that enabled me to come back to Beijing, and I'm working in various theatres. And it is a great pleasure indeed to see that these last few years there are so many efforts on behalf of the Chinese artists to stage ancient Greek drama. And it's only in the last 2 years that we see that we have Antigone, Iphigenia, and Tauris, Electra, and now we also have Agamemnon being prepared, and it's in collaboration of the National Theatre of China with the National Theatre of Greece. And we have also staged last year The Birds, Ornithis, of Aristophanes. So all of these efforts that have been the result of theatrical collaboration between the two countries are in fact something that the Chinese public really seeks. We see that the Chinese thirst after Greek art and theatre and Greek culture. And we see more and more Greeks, more Greek artists coming to China, where they work with the Chinese artists in order to stage common performances. And as last year, Marmarinos, the director, had come to Shanghai and he staged Electra. And this year, Libathinos, who is the artistic director of the National Theatre of Greece, is preparing Agamemnon to be staged in Beijing, and it is going to be held on the 20th of February in Beijing. So all of these efforts on behalf of the artists of the two countries result in a huge effort to bring together our two peoples. And this is thanks to art. And we are now preparing a documentary entitled Harmony from or Through Differences. It's exactly something that you're doing in Dialogues Tonight. We're talking in a documentary about the common points and the differences between China and Greece. It is the first time that we have such a comparison of the two ancient cultures and present the commonalities of these two countries. So it's the first time in TV and documentaries that we have this, and it will be an unprecedented look into our past, our history, and talk about our present. And we will try to see what is going to be the future of our two ancient civilizations. We are waiting for it with bated breath. That's very interesting. And now, Ambassador, Mr. Rokanas, from all of these very interesting things that we have heard with respect to civilization, with respect to art, with respect to history, can we come back to the other component, which has to do with the economy, investments, and innovation? And can we see here? And of course, given the years that have gone by, the years of the economic crisis that has greatly afflicted Greece, I would like to ask the activities of the two countries in these sectors, but what is also the relationship? Because it's something that has been seen in the news of the two countries throughout the crisis with respect to Greece.
Μάλιστα. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ για την ερώτηση.
Thank you very much for your question. I see that this is a very interesting discussion. I could add to the discussion that indeed one of the major common elements is the tradition of education, as mentioned by Mr. Chaniotis, which does not just stem from Confucius philosophy, but it is actually a way of life, an attitude that results from this philosophy. It's actually an ongoing improvement of a person, which is the engine, I think, the driver behind these two great civilizations. And let me now come to your question. Indeed, our relations are following a rising trend these last few years. Let's say since 2006, if we want to give a landmark. So this is when our collaboration started in the maritime sector, and we signed our strategic partnership document. And since then, we have been rising. Our relations have been rising. And I should say that now we are at the best point of the last few years. But as you said yourself, even in periods such as after 2008 or 9, when the crisis started in Greece, there has been no decline in the relations with China. On the contrary, the relations continued flourishing. And we have very positive picture in the Greek-Chinese relations. And this is really remarkable. Chinese investments, of course, the major investment has been COSCO investment in the port of Piraeus. COSCO has also upgraded the infrastructures of the port. And as a result, Piraeus is the second port in the Mediterranean this year concerning the traffic of containers. And this keeps growing in all different sectors. So these investments, apart from their impact on growth, creation of jobs, and also in terms of an economic benefit for our country, these investments have also been a vote of confidence, let's say, to our country in a critical period. It was a vote of economic confidence, which has shown the markets and foreign investors that they can come and invest in Greece. And concerning today's situation, I will briefly tell you that in terms of trade, there is huge potential for growth. However, the trade these last 3 years has been rising. We have exports that keep growing by 40%. This year, we had a 90% increase, and respectively, imports from China keep growing. There is, of course, a trade deficit. There is still a trade deficit, but not just with Greece. This is also with other countries. But relations keep growing, developing at a momentum which is indeed the desirable one. But, of course, there is room for improvement in the future. Concerning investments, the major investment, as we've said, is the investment in the port of Piraeus, of course. But it goes beyond that. The key sectors are infrastructures, of course, which have also been included in a multi-annual strategic action plan that was signed in May 2017. So we have included the field of transportation and infrastructures, energy, and telecommunications. And in these 3 sectors, we have Chinese businesses that are active doing business in Greece, and they have good results and great prospects for the future. And other sectors will follow, of course, logistics, for example. And of course, there is an intention to grow our relations even in the agricultural sector. Tourism also keeps going up. There is an increasing trend in tourism as well, 35% last year. That was the growth rate last year. We may go up to 50% in the next years. And this direct flight between Athens and Beijing is very important. This is a great achievement. We made great efforts since September 2017. It's very important to have other air connections, direct flight connections, but we are on the right track. Our participation in the strategic initiative One Belt, One Road, our participation there will also be very helpful. Greece, along with more than 70 countries participating in this initiative, has a key role. And this is not just about the sea road of the Silk. This is one of the main gateways for China into the European area. Of course, a lot remains to be done, railways, for example, and others, but it's very important because we are a hub. And there are other important fields, innovation, for example, which is a top priority in Greece and in China, or high technology. As you know, China is an iconic country, an exemplary country, I would say, for the 4th industrial revolution and the globalized planet. So our partnerships keep growing in this field as well, which is a privileged field, I would say, given to the unique property of our country, having a very high number of people, not just with university degrees, but also with master degrees. And this is a very good manpower for those who want to invest in high tech. We can have thematic parks and centers for research and development in Greece. Now, we have talked about investments. Yes, we also wanted to hear the ambassador of China on this topic. Thank you for what you said. It's a huge canvas, of course, as we can realize. And you have given us great prospects of collaboration. So apart from describing the current situation in the relations between the two countries, you also gave us future prospects. So, Madam Ambassador, referring to the years of crisis, but even other years, the ambassador, the Greek ambassador, has talked about vote of confidence. This is how he characterized the Chinese investments in Greece. So, from your viewpoint and officially, could you tell us why? One would wonder why, or what does this come from? Where does this interest come from? And because we are talking about a country which is faced with several difficulties, I don't need to describe the difficulties which we have all experienced these last years. And I will also include in my question those who are suspicious and those who have criticized this development. So could you give us a comprehensive answer on this?
Yes. Well, first of all, let me say that I fully agree with what Ambassador Hogan has said, and he has made quite a complete picture of the bilateral relationship. Well, I think I agree that we, during the crisis of the Greek crisis, China has actually supported Greece, and also the Chinese companies have invested into this country. It is really, I think, it's a vote of confidence. I actually remember that actually in 2010, when the Greece economy was just facing great difficulties, Chinese premier then at that time came to visit, and also he delivered a speech in your parliament and saying that we must have confidence and work together to overcome the challenges. I think the reason for saying that or doing that, paying that visit, is that Greece has been a very friendly country for us, for China. Actually, we always remember that we enjoy diplomatic relations of about 47 years, and Greece was actually one of the first European countries that recognized and entered into diplomatic relations with us. Actually, 3 years before our official relations with the EU. So our official relations with the EU was in 1975. So we had our diplomatic relations in 1972. And I would say that our official or diplomatic relations has always been characterized by mutual respect and also a friendly cooperation. So even during our time of hardship or difficult times, I think Greek people have supported the Chinese people. Just to give an example, that even as early as 50s and 60s, when China's economy was very, very bad, the Greek ship owners actually carried the goods to China and from China. And also, when we had problems with our workers working in Libya and other places, and when there was a crisis that we had to bring these workers back home, the Greek people actually supported us by receiving them at a very short notice and providing these people with the best conditions. Just to give you an example, that during the crisis when we tried to bring the workers from Libya to Crete, it was during the winter time, I think it was December, actually all the hotels in Crete were closed. But because these big ships of Chinese workers were coming and they had to make a stop in Crete, I heard that it was within 8 hours, 18 hotels opened, and also provided hot food and bed and everything for the workers. So for all these people, the workers or the business people who have had this kind of experience, always remember the friendship, the friendly sentiments of the Greek people toward the Chinese people. So I think, you know, we understood even at that time that the Greek people were undergoing some difficulties, and we had confidence in Greece, in the Greek people, and we have experienced many hardships. We know what it was like, and so we tried to help in every way we can. And I think today, the relationship has been going on very well, and I think it's been a very good example of a win-win cooperation. So I think, as you said, that there has been suspicions as to China and Greek relationship. I just wanted to say that because this is a relationship of a win-win situation, a win for all, it benefited not just the Chinese people, but the Greek economy and the society. Just to give you an example, when the ambassador talked about the Piraeus port, the Piraeus port has not only been making good business achievement, but it has created jobs for the local people. So I think at least about 10,000 indirect jobs are created, and also there have been other results, out of this container ship development and other development, and there are other possibilities of further developing the port as a hub for the whole area and for the benefits of the economic benefits and social benefits of the whole country. So that's why when this kind of cooperation project is characterized by win-win, beneficial for both sides, good cooperation, I think it will be long-lasting.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Επειδή ο χρόνος τρέχει, ο κύριος Τρίγκας δεν έχει μιλήσει.
Thank you. We are running out of time. Mr. Tringas has not talked so far. Let me come to you. Apart from your questions that you can raise either on the web or through live streaming, snf.org/questions. But we also expect the audience present here to express opinions and questions. I know that there are several people who are students or who have made part of their studies in China, those who are Greeks, or Chinese who have studied in Greece, respectively. So we would like to listen to what you have to say and share your experience with us. So if anybody wants to take the floor, please let us know. Please raise your hand if you want to speak. And please raise your hand and we can give you the microphone. In the meanwhile, Mr. Trigas, can you give us your view now that you've heard about all those sectors? And of course, there are several others, but where would you focus mostly?
Thank you very much. A happy new Greek and Sino New Year. I'd like to thank the Ambassador for the invitation, and I'll start from education, and I'd like to say that Tonya Lua is in fact an example of a person who goes to study abroad. She came to Greece 20 years ago. She learned about Greece, Greek culture. She actually got to know our system of values, and she has come back to China, and she is the catalyst. She's instrumental by translating the ancient Greek dramas into Chinese, and she has been instrumental into staging them. So education is a broader concept than civilization because it contains culture. So when somebody actually goes and studies abroad, they learn about the values of that country, and they learn things that one cannot learn simply through tourism, because they simply go surface deep. They go to a museum and they spend 10 days in a foreign country. So having this better perception of the contribution of civilization and the knowledge that China in the 21st century is one of the two superpowers, one of the two axes in terms of technology, politics, culture, military. In the last 4 or 5 years, a group of Greeks has tried to take these ties and student exchanges further. These educational exchanges between the Tsinghua University, which is in fact the alma mater of the Chinese president, and it is in fact the symbol of Chinese elite with Greece. And we have referred to a significant donation from the Lascaris Foundation and the continuous assistance of the ambassador. And in the last 4 years, we have managed to create, in fact, a chair for a visiting professor from Greece here in Tsinghua and to send from the university Chinese students to Greece. I consider it to be very important. What is the target? The target is to actually create a dynasty of Antonines, and that is elite, which is made up of Philalins that understand Greece and that will have a direct relationship with our culture and the Greek symbols and will be an ally of Greece in the future. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I would like now, with respect to those points that have been raised, to hear altogether a student who, perhaps if you want to stand up so that the rest of the world can see you, can you tell us your name? From there. We'll see you. You can come here also. You're welcome. I will stand up. Please have a seat. Please. We've been talking about collaboration, and I think it is very interesting to hear your points. How did you find yourself in China, and what did you learn there? My name is Stavros. I'm a student in the University of Economics in the IT department, and I was, in fact, able to go to China thanks to Seeds of the Future by Huawei. This gives the possibility to students from the whole of Greece to go and visit China and to get to learn about the culture and to learn things in ICT. So our trip started from Beijing, where we had the possibility to see the wall and the Forbidden City, and then we had to attend Chinese classes in a university in Beijing. I must say it was rather difficult in the start because, I mean, imagine seeing these letters that come from symbols, because the Chinese do not have an alphabet as we know it. They had a symbol such as the sun or the horse, and then they designed it. So that means that their words came from the symbols. And it was very interesting indeed to get to know how you can write with these symbols. We learnt keywords such as ni hao. Okay, we've learnt that. Okay, tell us something else. Volaitishila, which means, so the fundamentals. So we learnt the basics. What was very interesting was calligraphy, where we had a professor who painted and then was giving us the possibility to use the same instruments to also do so. What was a bit strange for us in the beginning is the food, because Chinese and Greek food have no relationship with each other, and we're not used to the proper Chinese. We're used to the Greek Chinese restaurant. And also, what was curious was the round table. They have this glass on which they put the food, and you could turn around the glass component to get the food you want. We didn't really eat that much. Then we went to Shenzhen. Well, in Beijing we had the cultural part of the trip, and then we went to see the technology component, which is, in fact, the more corporate part of China through Huawei. And there we attended certain ICT courses in the headquarters of the company, and afterwards we were tested on our knowledge to see how we did. Did you meet up with other Greeks? Not in the program, but generally. We met up with the attaché in China, and we were able to meet with him in the headquarters of Huawei. What about meeting people in the street? No, not really. But when we were in the Forbidden City, I was looking around. The Chinese were a bit shorter, but suddenly I felt somebody tugging on my blouse, and they looked at me and they said, "Picture." In the beginning, I thought that they wanted me to photograph them, but in the end, they posed next to me, and they simply wanted to take a picture with me, because as we were told afterwards, these are, in fact, Chinese who come from areas in the provinces and don't meet Europeans often, and it's a great experience for them to get to meet a European. Thank you.
Σας ακούμε.
We are listening to the next speaker.
Τώρα να σας δώσουμε το μικρόφωνο.
Just wait for the mic, please.
Ονομάζομαι Γεραρής Δημήτρης.
Geraris Dimitris is my name, and I have visited Beijing and China 62 times. I've been there 62 times with Greek travelers. Some of the people here might be with me. And in 2006, as an airplane engineer, because this is my main profession, I helped the Air China start its direct flights. I helped, but this didn't happen. I heard you today say that these direct flights will indeed be put in place. I have a draft here with the then president of the government that we had gone to Beijing years ago, and I see that it's only 9-hour flight from Athens to Beijing, direct flight. So what do you think? Will it be 9 hours, or would it be through Rome or, I don't know, where? Through Singapore, via Singapore or Bangkok, I don't know. I have done 272 groups all over the world, and since I keep traveling, it's very important to know how many hours I will spend in the plane. So it's I was very glad to hear that there's going to be a direct flight. I apologize for interrupting. I think there's a problem with the interpretation headphone. So I was very pleased to hear that there's going to be direct flights, so it would be easier to travel there, because I've had 5,000 hours of flights. Second, I am a member of a choir of 2 choirs, and we wanted to visit China with cooperation of Chinese. This is for the ambassador. Well, you will have the chance to discuss in person later on. Please allow us to give the chance to other people to speak. Please be brief. So in the choir of the National Opera, we have an international, interstate choir from 12 countries, but we do not have a Chinese in that choir. So please send us a Chinese to sing with us. It's free of charge. You don't need to do anything. Just send us a Chinese people so that we can sing together in the intercultural choir of the National Opera in this same room where we are rehearsing. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Anastasia Karamouzi is my name. I am a friend of Tonia. I'm exactly the opposite from Tonia because I grew up in China. I went to the primary school, high school, university, everything. I did everything in Beijing. My parents in the 60s were invited as the first Greeks and started the Greek language seat in the university. So the first batch of Chinese who started learning Greek and actually started what is happening today were there. And I'm very proud hearing all these discussions. I graduated from the Beijing University. I'm a medical doctor. Now I'm living in Greece, and I believe that this situation and, of course, Greek-Chinese relations have a long tradition, but the main thing is that I think these relations have a long future. Thank you. If there is any other question or remark, and in the meanwhile, I will raise the issue of the Olympic Games for everyone, because obviously there is a universal value throughout the world, of course, mostly for Greeks, but there is a strong interest on the part of China in the Olympic Games. So I don't know who would like to respond. This is a question for all of you. Give us your opinion on this.
Το οποίο με εντυπωσίασε περισσότερο.
Well, concerning the Olympic Games, both in Athens but also in Beijing, what really impressed me has been that in the opening ceremonies, these two civilizations, these two cultures with a long tradition, had the opportunity to highlight, to display this element of history. This was not just a celebration, a feast. It was a celebration which, however, narrated to spectators and to the whole world a journey of millennia. And this is again something that unites the two countries. And let me also mention a difference, because I'm also a resident in the US, and let me say that this is completely different in that country, which does not have a tradition of centuries. It only has a tradition of a much shorter history. And this, of course, entails several problems.
I just wanted to say that, of course, in 2008 we had a very successful Olympic Games in Beijing, but probably many of you do not realize that actually part of the success came from you. We learned a lot from you, and actually during all those preparations we worked with many of the Greek people, and actually when you organized the 2004 Olympics, we sent Beijing, the preparatory committee sent several officials to work with you and to see how you organize the games and to gain a lot of experience. So we have learned very much from you and cooperated very closely together to make a successful Olympic game in 2008. And just wanted to say also that actually we have successfully applied for the winter Olympic Games in 2022, which will be held in Beijing and in the greater Beijing area. And so we already, actually, I believe that a few of the Olympic experts are already working with China, and I believe that when it's close to 2022, that there will be more cooperation, more training, or kind of working together on both sides, because this will be the first time for China to organize winter games. And China, I believe, that will be the very first country that has organized both the summer and the winter games by 2022. So we are looking forward to organizing more events in the sport sector so that young people and our athletes can work together. I think this is also very beneficial for our relationship.
Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Σας ακούμε.
Thank you very much. We're all ears. My name is Aphrodite Bleda. I am the president of the Greek-Chinese Chamber of Entrepreneurship. I've been involved with China for the last 30 years or so, so you understand that I have visited China often. I would like to congratulate the Stavros Niarchos Foundation and all the participants for this exceptional initiative, and this was a very lively and interesting dialogue, and to wish you a happy new year, the year of the pig. Now, from there on, I would like to add very succinctly to the similarities of the two societies. The New Year, before it was designated as the 1st of January, was celebrated in the time around spring. And this actually makes me think of the Spring Festival that the Chinese celebrate. And throughout these celebrations, the Ersioni was in fact embellished with white and red threads, and this was in fact a branch of wild olive. And they used all the fruit that existed then in order to offer abundance, prosperity. So also pomegranate, the pomegranate that we break in the door on the first day of the year, it has in fact red fruit, and we come back to the red colour. Now let's come to the culinary factor. And I do not espouse the view of my friend who spoke before. I believe there are quite a few similarities. With the only European nation that eats a lot of food in the middle from small plates from which everybody takes and serves themselves. And this is something that we see in the Chinese culture. And we're also amongst the European countries that has simplified cuisine without a lot of butter and cream. And this actually reminds us a lot of the dishes in the Chinese culinary tradition. And as you refer to the Olympics, I'd like to say in the run up to the 2004, there were a lot of delegations sent from China to study and acquire know-how. And in one such delegation, we went to the restaurant in the evening, and the Beijing Olympic Organizing Committee said, before we sit down, you've brought us to a very good restaurant. I said, indeed, but we haven't even sat around the table. How do you know it? Well, he said, the people who is inside is speaking a lot and loudly, and that means that they're happy. In China, when we are eating and are happy, yet we speak loudly, and this is another common element that unites us. Now, I would like to say that this is something that we all identified with this example. So, Mr. Cañones, yes, first and foremost, I'd like to say how we are able to hear the people who have been pioneers in forging the relations and ties between Greece and China for the last decades. And this was in times when things were more difficult, the conditions were tougher. And it's very important to remember them and to show our gratitude for what they've done. And had Michael Skardosis, the professor of the University in Ioannina, who has been, in fact, promoting the studies between Greece and China. You talked about Ishnoi, but it is not, in fact, a New Year celebration. So in ancient Greece, it was the end of September or the end of the summer. And when we're talking about the pomegranate, there's no contrast with what I said, but the red color that comes from the pomegranate is related to the blood. But the blood is from the menstrual cycle of the women, and that's why it has this symbolism. And we must say that the Greek-Chinese relations are, in fact, very long-standing, and they are based on a tradition that was forged under very difficult conditions. And today, it is a lot easier for somebody to travel, but also to promote them. Thank you so much. I would like to ask, because we know that it's dawn for one, and the others will have to go to bed. So I'd like Mr. Karalis to have one final statement from you so that we can bid you a good morning and to thank you for your participation here tonight. Thank you. Perhaps I would like to conclude with culture, and this has to do with history, of course. We talk a lot about ancient Greece, Byzantine, and we're talking about the heavy weapons, if you like, that we have, and the heavy artillery, and our relationship with China. Have you thought, on the other hand, how a dynamic China that is self-confident influences the world, not only on an economic level that was heard throughout the panelist discussion? About a year ago, I was in contact with a team of young designers who work a form of comics, the so-long graphic novel. And this was based on the story of the Yenis Akritas. So that means that this is an obviously Byzantine story. And of course, the style that they chose to express their story. They use the cartoons that is emblematic of China today. And think about this symbolism. So perhaps we have a lot of us today grown up with Mickey Mouse and Asterix. So that's the US and France. But we are now at the moment where China, with its presence and with the cultural models that it has in terms of pop culture also, may influence a team of young Greeks that are thinking of how to express their civilization. And this is a key point. It denotes that there is a great future in our discussion and debate with China, because China is obviously present internationally. And on our side, in the Center for Hellenic Studies, we are going to work long and hard in order to forge closer ties and to promote the Greek culture and the possibility to learn from the further study of the Chinese culture. That is all from me, and thank you very much for your invitation. Well, thank you. Good day. Have a good day. Have a good year also. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Karalis. Now, a very brief closure also from you, Mr. Louis Zhang, and whether you could actually be talking to us with respect to the work and the activities of your Confucius Institute. So what is the purpose and the activity of Confucius Center in Greece, Athens?
I know some of you do not know the existence of Athens Business Confucius Institute, and do not even know the existence of Confucius Institute in the world. Well, actually, Confucius Institute, the first Confucius Institute, was founded in 2004 in South Korea, and then later we founded more and more. Now, currently, globally, we have 548 Confucius Institutes. Now, in Athens, we have only one. But what is, the good news is that we will have another one in Thessaloniki, co-founded by Shanghai University of International Studies and Aristoteles University. Now, the function of CI, we call it the CI, Confucius Institute, is there are two functions. The first function is, I'm sorry, this earphone, okay. The first function is to teach Chinese to the local people. And the second function is to transmit some Chinese culture, to give opportunity to the local people to know about Chinese culture. These two functions, co-work, and they have been working smoothly all over the world. Now, currently, in our Athens Business Confucius Institute, averagely, every year, we enroll 130 students of different ages. Actually, the eldest is 78 years old, and we have a children's class, 6 years old, 7 years old. We are located at Evilbidon, Ecosia, near the Athens court. Now we can enroll students only from Athens. students who are interested in learning Chinese, say in Kridis, in Saloniki, in Volos, in other places, they don't have any chance to learn Chinese. So this is something bad. Now, in terms of the development of BCI here, we have a kind of a class which is going to be held, which is called the MOOC. That is, we teach online. We establish an online system of teaching. This is supported by Confucius Institute headquarters in Beijing. And now in Greece, it is, I can say it is underway, but actually in some countries, it has already been founded. The system has been founded. Do I have more time? Okay.
No more. Έχουμε ήδη ξεπεράσει το χρόνο μας.
We are already running late. We are running late, and we also have to coordinate the artistic, performances, because a lot of preparations have been done, not just for the discussion and the meeting, but also for the artists who are here with us. We've have had the first taste in the beginning, but we have other artistic performances. A short question for you, Madam Ambassador. In most big cities all over the world, Chinatown has a very dynamic presence. In Greece, what do you see? What do you think? Is there something similar in Greece? Something growing, developing? Do you have a picture? How many Chinese people live permanently in our country?
I see there is a Chinese community here. I believe that it is growing, and I think there are roughly over 10,000, a little more than 10,000. Well, I think they have assimilated very well in this country. Most of them already speak Greek language, even though that is a very difficult language. And all of their children go to the local school, and they speak perfect Greek language. And I think they are actually really contributing to the Greek society, and having a lot of friends, local friends, and they're very much part of the local society. And just to give you an example, that last year when there was this serious fire, they actually, was one of the first groups that responded to help, and they donated money to give to the disaster-stricken areas. And so they are, I believe that I visited some of them, and there is almost like a little Chinatown here in the center, city center. I think they are doing very well. They're assimilating there very well, and they are also learning and adapting to the Greek way, which I think is also very good.
Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ.
Thank you very much. Ambassador, Mr. Rokanas, what time is it in China? The right question should be what time it is in Greece, but anyway. It's 1:45 after midnight. Oh, forgive us for that, for this delay, but it has been an interesting discussion. Yes, definitely. Just one last remark for you, a final remark, so that we can close. So once again, thank you for having given me the opportunity. Congratulations to Stavros Niarchos Cultural Foundation. A couple of things from the Chinese history from which we can learn a lot. I think China is a unique example of a country which, especially after 1949, has had an explosive growth, a rapid growth in all different sectors. And of course, this was mostly based on education. And I think that now we are in a new era. I called it a fourth industrial revolution. Some people call it a digital revolution, digital era. But this is indeed a new era, and these are uncharted waters. And China plays a pioneer role. It is a power which is open to the future. So two cultures, such as the Greek and the Chinese, that are in ongoing dialogue throughout history, have to get reconnected. We are two twin cultures, I would say, one in the East, one in the West. And I think that with young people as pioneers, we should continue the thread of history and restart a dialogue which will help us and the whole planet. Perhaps China is one of the most important experiments that were done in history, eventually along with the EU, which keeps growing. So what can we learn from that? How can young people learn? I do encourage young people to come here and learn from this country, because this is a country of miracles. This is a multi-aspected and multi-dimensional, huge continent. It is not just a country, which I believe hides important secrets for the future. So I think it's imperative to learn it better. And this is my conclusion, which is a conclusion which is both Greek and Chinese. We have to learn one another better and to be able to address future better. Thank you very much once again, and congratulations. We thank you. We thank everyone. We thank all those who took part in this discussion from Greece, from China, from Athens, from Beijing. Thank you very much, the participant from Canada. Thank you, everyone. And for those attending through live streaming, I'm saying that today's meeting will be continued with artistic performances based on the Chinese tradition and combining a very interesting blend of different arts and techniques, as you will see in a while. If you're interested, you can participate. You will understand in what. Happy New Year once again, since this is a new year, and it is our first month of the year, so we can still wish Happy New Year. Our best wishes for everyone. Our next appointment is the 15th of February. We will open the issue of journalism, which is not very pleasant, but it's extremely interesting. We opened this subject a year ago. We will discuss it again. I think we do admit that there is a huge problem. There is a crisis, not just in Greece, but throughout the world. It is not just a crisis in the West. It's a crisis throughout the world. And apart from this circle where we acknowledge the problems, we should see what the future is. The future is already here. So there is a few things to discuss, interesting things to announce. So we are opening our discussion to the world. We will have guests from our neighborhood in Europe. We will also have guests from the Balkans, from the United States of America. So we will all sit around one table and open this discussion. So stay tuned in our site, Stavros Niarchos, SNF.org. In a few days, within the week, we shall announce the place and time, hours, because it could be a long-lasting event, because this is a huge subject. And then in March, we are going to discuss and hear melodies born from rebetiko. This is a type of music which is quite particular. So historically and culturally, we will see all the movements of rebetiko and how it has affected the field of music. Thank you.
那一去不想到，意中人却在这里。
今夕何夕见此两人？
姐姐，你看美柳迎春，你既言同世事，何不索事一首一上词，留之乎？
那是素昧平生，因何大词？
姐姐，在一片倾心爱意上，姐姐，和你到那大儿讲话去。
哪里去？
我